Today's subject is a weird one. We will talk about one of the last persons to have a historic claim on the throne of the Roman Empire, and his life on the distant Caribbean island of Barbados. Ferdinand Paleologus was the fourth son of Theodore Paleologus by his wife Mary Balls, and was baptized in the Church of St. Andrew in Plymouth on the 15th of June 1619, the baptismal register recording him as Ferdinando, son of Theodore Paleologus, an Italian. Ferdinand's full name appears to have been William Ferdinand Paleologus, but the only known reference to the name William comes from documentation of his election as vestryman in 1649, most other sources referring to him simply as Ferdinand Paleologus. As the son of Theodore Paleologus, Ferdinand might have been one of the last living descendants of the Paleologos dynasty, rulers of the Byzantine Empire from 1259 to 1453. The lineage of Ferdinand and Theodore can be verified as true with the exception of an ancestor called John, purported to be the son of Thomas Paleologos, but absent in contemporary sources, making their descent from the emperors plausible, but somewhat uncertain. None of Theodore's and Ferdinand's contemporaries doubted their imperial descent. Ferdinand had three older brothers: Theodore, who died in infancy, Theodore Jr. and John Theodore, and two older sisters, Dorothy and Mary. After his baptism in 1619, the next record of Ferdinand is his name appearing on the list of soldiers present at St. Michael's Fort in Plymouth Sound in 1639. Before then, he had likely lived with his father Theodore and his sisters Dorothy and Mary, first in Plymouth and then in Landulph in Cornwall. This listing suggests that Ferdinand, at age 19, had chosen to support the royalist side in the English Civil War of 1642-1651, the opposite side of his brother Theodore Jr. Unlike Theodore Jr., Ferdinand was not a commander in any capacity but a common soldier. What happened to Ferdinand immediately after 1639 is unclear, since he is absent from army lists compiled by both the parliamentarists and the royalists in 1642. It is possible that he was either one of the royalists who chose to flee to Barbados to avoid punishment in England, or that he had escaped to Barbados already before the war broke out. A likely explanation is that Ferdinand sought his fortune with his relatives, the Balls family from Suffolk, from which his mother had been. There were no less than 3 plantations owned by the Balls family on Barbados, including the largest plantation on the island. Ferdinand and the Balls family before him were some of the earliest settlers on the island, which had only been discovered around 1620. The British had first settled the island in 1627. Ferdinand's presence on Barbados is first attested on the 26th of June 1644, when he and his older brother John Theodore are attested as witnesses to a deed. Ferdinand gradually integrated himself with the Barbadian elite. Sometime before 1649, he had become a freeholder, probably with the support of the Balls family, and he married Rebecca Pomfret, daughter of a local landowner. He built and owned an estate called Clifton Hall, named after the home he and his family had lived in while in Landulph, and owned a small cotton or sugar plantation. Clifton Hall is located on the heights of St. John, near St. John's Parish Church, which Ferdinand supported throughout his life. Clifton Hall still stands today and remains recognized as one of the largest, grandest, and oldest great houses on Barbados. Clifton Hall has changed radically since Ferdinand's time, most of the rooms and interior dating to renovation and construction projects in the early 19th century. Only the kitchen and staff quarters, alongside 2 small rooms currently used as changing rooms for the swimming pool, remain intact from the 17th century. In 1649, Ferdinand was elected to the vestry of St. John's Parish. In the early years of the island, such vestrymen were powerful establishment figures. Over the years, he gradually added to his property, being recorded as purchasing more land. On a map of Barbados, a plantation labeled the Paleologus and Beale Plantation, to the west of St. John's Church, is marked with the drawing of a pineapple, meaning that Ferdinand might have cultivated pineapples in addition to cultivating sugar or cotton. Like other owners of plantations, Ferdinand would have employed slaves at his plantation. In the late 17th century, at least 2,000 slaves were imported to Barbados each year. By 1655, Ferdinand was a churchwarden, and later he was a trustee. He also concerned himself with affairs unrelated to the church, being attested as a lieutenant and as a surveyor of the highways. He became known on the island as the Greek prince from Cornwall, and was long remembered by that nickname after his death. Ferdinand was recorded as absent from a meeting of the vestry in January 1670, probably on account of ill health. His condition would worsen over the course of the following months, and on September of that year, he made a will. In the will, half of Ferdinand's estate was willed to his wife Rebecca, and the other half to his son Theodore. Theodore's inheritance was to be employed for his maintenance and education, together with the increase of his estate, until he attains the age of 14 years. Ferdinand's sisters Dorothy and Mary were willed 20 shillings each, and further money and items of value were willed to Ferdinand's godson Ralph Hassel and his friend Edward Walrond. The will was amended to state that Rebecca was to inherit the entire estate if Theodore died before her without children of his own. Various inaccurate dates for Ferdinand's death have been provided over the years, mostly on account of the crabbed handwriting in some of these documents. The date provided on his gravestone, erected in 1906, wrongly gives his date of death as the 3rd of October 1678. It is likely that he died on, or soon after, the date his will was amended. He was buried at the cemetery of St. John's Parish Church. On October 1819, a hurricane swept over Barbados. Among the locations damaged were St. John's Church, and while removing disturbed bodies to new burial sites, the body of Ferdinand was discovered. Ferdinand's gravesite is used for publicity on Barbados today, with visitors to St. John's Church immediately being confronted with signs pointing to it. The monument is recent, however, erected in 1906, and since Ferdinand's body was moved in the 20th century, it marks his current burial site, not the original 1670 site. The monument's text, clearly based on the text on the tombstone of his father in Cornwall, reads, "Here lieth, ye body of Ferdinando Paleologus, descended from ye imperial line, of ye last Christian emperors of Greece. Churchwarden of this parish, 1655-1656. Vestryman, 20 years. Died, October 3rd, 1678. If Ferdinand and his father were genuine members of the Paleologos family, Ferdinand was one of the last living members of the dynasty. Ferdinand was only survived by his son Theodore, who in turn was only survived by his daughter Godskal, who disappeared from history. Local tradition has it that the provisional government in Athens sent a letter to the authorities on Barbados in the aftermath of the Greek War of Independence, inquiring if a living branch of the Paleologos dynasty still lived on the island. The letter supposedly requested that if that was the case, the head of the family should be provided with the means of returning to Greece, with the trip paid for by the Greek government. With Ferdinand's last known living descendants dead or missing in the 17th century, it was ascertained that there were no living Paleologi on Barbados. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next one.